In this video, I'm going to talk about using Omnisphere 3 with an MPE controller. In this particular case, we're going to pair it with the Roli Seaboard, and yes, there will be playing examples. But first, if this type of video is informative for you, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and we'll have more of these in the future. I recently took Omnisphere 3 for a test drive with the Roli Seaboard, specifically to try out some of the MPE capabilities, and I'm going to share with you some sound examples, plus my impressions of what works and what could be maybe a little bit better in the experience. Omnisphere 3 is a recent release, and if you saw the trailer from Omnisphere promoting the product, they did this fantastic job showcasing what it can do driving MPE sounds with an MPE controller. In the company video, they give this specific example of it's an ostrich egg type sound that is activated with the Expressive E Osmos, an MPE controller. And using it, they're able to get these phenomenal nuances out of the sound. And that's one of the things that I thought would be really interesting to drive out of Omnisphere with an MPE controller. So that's one of the things I was looking for when diving into its MPE capabilities. So as regards that playing example of the ostrich egg sound and this fantastic MPE expressiveness that was generated using the Osmos, when I actually opened up Omnisphere, I went looking for that specific sound and I couldn't find it anywhere. I searched for everything ostrich egg related. I did find those types of sounds, but not with the MPE layers that were demonstrated in the company video. So either I missed them or they're not there. If you have found those presets in Omnisphere, would really appreciate it if you dropped into the comments below what's the name of the preset, because not only could I not find it, I couldn't find any presets that were designed for maximizing MPE keyboard or MPE controller nuances. So you would expect to see patches with modulation set to either MPE X, Y, or Z, and I'm not finding any of those. Again, they might be there and I just don't know where to find them, but I dug around quite a bit and couldn't find any of those. And if they're not there, it's possibly because an MPE configuration might be set up one way if you're using a Roli Seaboard, versus another way if you're using the Osmos versus if you're using something totally different. So that I could kind of understand, but it still would be interesting to have some level of those kind of programs available in Omnisphere 3. And with that, let's roll up our sleeves and look at some sound examples in Omnisphere 3 using the Roli Seaboard. All right, so the first thing I'm going to demo is using Omnisphere with the Roli Seaboard with some basic just out of the box configurations. And one thing I've noticed with using the Seaboard on Omnisphere is if you look in the hardware options, it's interesting since Omnisphere 3 is noted as having MPE support, I don't find any of the most popular MPE keyboards in this list. So for example, there's nothing from Roli listed, so I can't specifically call up the keyboard for the Seaboard. I don't see, for example, with Arturia, something like the Polybrute 12, which is another wonderful MPE keyboard. The other popular MPE keyboard that's out there is the Osmos from Expressive E. There's also no Expressive E option in here as well. So it appears you're not going to select any MPE hardware at the moment from these selections. One thing I did note is in the system setting, this is where you're going to select MPE on or off, And if I disengage MPE and I try to hit keys on the Roli Seaboard, nothing happens. I do have to have MPE enabled. At least this is my experience so far. There's probably some other settings perhaps. With MPE on the screen, I am going to get sound. So let's start with just calling up a few patches from Omnisphere 3 just to play around to see how the Roli works with native sounds. No special MPE configuration. I'm just going to go through a few. The first sound I'm going to call up is going to be a flute patch. So there is a really nice expressive flute legato sound. We're going to call that up. And this is going to be an example of it using the Seaboard. All right, the next sound dial up here is this acoustic guitar quartet. It's kind of nice. So here's another guitar. This is on the electric side. This patch is called All Hail Distortion. Let's see what it does out of the box. Bowl's Edge is another patch we'll take a look at. All right, now we're going to take a look at how to use some of the MPE capabilities in Omnisphere. So what I'm going to do is open up a patch. I'm going to use this diphthong lead. And we're going to go into part A. This is only a one-part patch, so it makes it kind of easy to explore this. So without any changes, here's what this one sounds like. But we're going to change some things around. So let's start with The source that currently is the wheel, we're going to make this the x-axis, which is going to be our side-to-side, and we're going to have that control the harmonia mix. So let me show you, but before I do this, if I turn that off, and if I slide up, that's the effect that I get. If I rather now control harmonia mix with the x-axis, listen to this. I get that growl. So that's going to be our X parameter. Now we are going to assign a parameter to control the gain. So I'm going to use my pressure, which is going to be my Z-axis. And with this, we are going to control the gain. So the harder I press, the louder the sound will get. So now I've got two parameters. And we're going to add one more. We're going to add our Y-axis, which is our front to back on the keys. And we're going to have this control the filter cutoff. Now it's showing on the screen that the cutoff's changing. I don't hear much, and the reason for that is in this patch, this filter is off. So sometimes depending on what you want to control, you've got to see how things are actually set up on the patch. So now if I turn the filter on, and now try to do the Y-axis, I do get a different effect. One of the things that specifically attracted me to checking out Omnisphere 3 is the types of sounds that it offers are very much in the style of music that I've been making recently. So several months ago, I released an album called Musical Visions from the Edgar Allan Poe songbook. Those types of sounds are what Omnisphere offers. I didn't use Omnisphere for that, but in making more of that type of music, that's where I'm hopeful Omnisphere is going to come in handy in my setup, and with the ability to have MPE expression, that's going to hopefully allow me to take those types of compositions and that kind of music making to a different level. Okay, so here's my thoughts on the Omnisphere 3/MPE trial experiment here. The good news is you can dive into lots of modulation opportunities to control various parameters in Omnisphere 3 with MPE X, Y, or Z axes. So if you have an MPE controller, that gives you new ways to control sounds using your fingers versus the traditional ways of mod wheels, pedals, and the like. On the not so great news, these types of patches appear to be designed on a per patch basis. And in fact, you're probably going to have to design them yourself on a per patch basis. So it makes accessing these types of sounds and getting straight into playing these types of sounds not as quick as some other programs that are designed specifically for pairing with an MPE instrument. As an example, if you open up the Equator soft synth that comes with the Roli Seaboard, you get an amazing amount of sounds that out of the box are designed to take advantage of the X, Y, and Z axes. The programs are really nice. They really take full advantage of those types of capabilities. It would be nice to have that in Omnisphere. Now, also on the good news front is there's a tremendous amount of things that you can control with those parameters, but as I found with my experimentation, it takes a while to figure out which parameters, be it a filter, be it an envelope, makes sense to pair with which MPE parameter. And sometimes the effects are subtle. Sometimes you have to spend a bit of time trying to find out what's the best parameter to control by either sliding your finger, by jiggling your finger, or by giving that extra pressure. And you can find yourself spending a lot of time just constructing a single patch that works, much less multiple patches that work. So I think there is an opportunity here for somebody who enjoys sound design to come out with sound banks for Omnisphere 3 that are designed to take advantage of the MPE capabilities and work well with specific boards. So for example, if there was a bank out there created for Roli Seaboard owners or for Expressive E Osmos owners, not only modifying some specific synth parameters like filter, etc., but also using MPE to control layers of multi-layered sounds, that would be phenomenal. So hopefully somebody out there takes that opportunity to introduce something like that to the Omnisphere 3 community. If you enjoy creating patches from scratch, there's lots here to keep you busy. But if you want to get into playing straight away, that's where it sure would be nice to have MPE controller specific patches available. It would also be great if the folks at Spectrasonics, who know this program probably better than anybody else, if they also came out with patches that were specific to MPE controllers, to the most popular MPE controllers, and also in the hardware option in the program to give us options for the most popular MPE controllers, because as I said at the beginning of the video, I didn't see any listed there. So at least give us hardware options for the Roli Seaboard, for the Osmos, maybe one or two others that are popular. That would be a nice addition. The other frustration that I had is in figuring out how to access the MPE capabilities in Omnisphere. It just wasn't intuitive at all. In fact, the first day I spent, it took me quite a bit of time to find that little plus sign icon that you click on to actually then get into the view where you've got all the opportunities to identify source and targets for modulation. That wasn't intuitive. I didn't find a manual online or otherwise available for the program that explained how to get there. I found one help screen somewhere with a picture of the source target modulation that you see in the video a little bit earlier, but nothing about how to get there. So it took me a while to figure that out. I then walked away from the program for a few days, and when I came back to make this video, I had to relearn that again, and it took me a while again to figure out, okay, how exactly do you get to that? So again, not intuitive. The capabilities are there, but it's a bit cumbersome to get to those. So because I had to do a bit of Googling, had to do some of my own trial and error with Omnisphere, hopefully this video is helpful for some of you who are looking to exploit some of the MPE capabilities to hopefully get to them quicker than I was able to. So I hope this video was helpful. Omnisphere 3 offers fantastic sounds to explore, and these MPE capabilities just bring the whole program to a brand new level. If you've had the chance to use Omnisphere with an MPE controller and have takeaways and learnings, Again, I'd appreciate if you drop those in the comments below. I'd love to learn from those, and hopefully the community that finds this video will find those of interest as well. Thanks for watching, and again, if the video was helpful or informative, I'd appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. We'll see you down the road with another video. In the meantime, happy music making.